famous for the heinous. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? That's how they sabotage themselves. So I did all that. I had no idea. If you have this placement, if you do, I am obsessed with you. Hi, my sweet friends. It's Meredith, your evolutionary astrologer, and today we are going to explore Jupiter through the houses. I just finished my series on Jupiter through the signs, but you have to mix the sign with the house. So I want you to blend both. So you do need to go and watch that series, watch my whole entire Jupiter series. The very first video is, what does Jupiter even mean in the astrology chart? It is so important to understand Jupiter because it is the largest planet, and this is where you are exaggerated. This is where you thrive to be your very best self. But I also want you to go watch the video in which your Jupiter sign is in, and now watch this video to find out how to blend those two energies, because Jupiter by house placement is absolutely critical. Think about this. Jupiter is going to stay in a sign for a year. So every single person in your freshman class of high school all had the same exact Jupiter, but you didn't all have the same belief systems. You didn't all have the same aspirations for your highest self. You would define that differently, right? Like the guy who sat next to me in my Latin class, he wanted to be a golf pro. He wanted to be Tiger Woods. Well, I didn't want to be that. We had different aspirations. So the house placement is equally as important as the sign placement. And then we're going to also talk a little bit about aspects. However, I am going to go so much deeper into Jupiter. This is just sort of a profound, but not as extensive of an understanding of Jupiter as I will teach and speak about when we're in Barcelona learning together. And if you can't come to Barcelona, you can always purchase the workshop that I teach. You can purchase all my workshops at shopsoulnavigation.com so you won't miss out. But for now, let's dive into the different house placements, starting with Jupiter in the first house. Are you ready for this? This is probably the biggest Jupiterian placement you could have. So raise your hand if you are one of those big, bold people that has Jupiter in the first. Tell me if that's you, and then tell me what sign it is in, because this is where you're exaggerated, and this is the house of self. Let's go into it. This placement has a lot of jubilance. This place has a lot of fanfare, and there can be a sense of royalty or regality with this placement. I want you to think of Mick Jagger because he has this placement in Leo. There is oftentimes, whatever your talent is, it's big and bold and brave and cutting edge. And one of your massive major goals in life is to master yourself, your vision for yourself, and to become autonomous, to become united with your belief system, and then go out there in a big, bold way and be it and become it and walk your talk, literally walk your talk. There is an enthusiasm and there is a larger than life quality here. All of these people have a bigness to them. So it could be a bigness in weight, in height, in presence, in radiance. And it definitely depends. This will be expressed based on the sign that it is in. I'm telling you right now, if you have Jupiter in the first house, you are a Jupiterian person. And this is a very powerful placement. I will tell you, there is a natural confidence and there is a desire for impact. These people usually chase that which they dream of. Oftentimes these people are extraordinarily successful, and people can become addicted to them because they have a magnificence about them. They radiate. This is a very regal placement. There's a feeling of royalty. So arrogance can happen. I want to try to get through all 12 signs, so I'm going to just give you guys the little overview. You should watch this video to understand any of your planetary placements in these houses. Okay, so like if your moon is here, everything I just said about the first house, you can apply to your emotional being, right? So stick with me and you'll learn a lot about the houses. Okay, Jupiter in the second house can manifest in numerous ways. One, there is usually an attachment to money in some way and an attachment into earning money, big money, either coming from money or becoming quite wealthy. But I want to tell you something, because it's Jupiter, you can earn big big and also spend big. So you might be somebody who's actually wasteful. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you are a phenomenal saver, but it does mean that there is a relationship to money that is directly attached to your self-worth and also your sense of security. Are you safe or not? Sometimes the money just finds you. Other times you grow it. Other times you're given it. And this can be a person who is extraordinarily spoiled. I will tell you that. I'll also tell you it can manifest in a way where the person is so generous and so giving and has a generosity of spirit, especially if they come from a place where they feel very secure inside of themselves, where they feel like they are standing in their calling, their belief system. Their self-worth actually comes from their belief system, what they believe in. That's how they find their self-worth. The material plane usually oftentimes plays a part. I'll tell you another thing. These are usually people that need nature or love the outdoors in some way, shape, or form. We have to look at the whole entire chart. Also, I will tell you, these people usually are quite beautiful. There can be an exaggeration of beauty. They can be obsessed with their own beauty. Beauty and trying to be beautiful can be an obsession, or the world can perceive them as the ideal or the beautiful. There's also usually a relationship to food here, and they can be a phenomenal cook or just have a big appetite, or they could have a certain type of self-worth around food. Maybe I'm a vegan, and so therefore my belief system, right? I also want to tell you that there can be an arrogance around money, but there can be a love for nature. They might be highly anxious, especially if they don't feel safe or secure. I just want you to think of like a wild bull. You know, if you piss off a wild bull, or if the bull is insecure, or if the bull thinks you're going to hurt them. So this can be kind of an aggressive placement too, just when it feels like it's not winning, when it feels unsupported, when it feels unsafe. Princess Diana had this aspect, and I think it's very interesting that she took on causes around HIV and helping. She was a champion for people who suffered from HIV, and she also was a champion for removing landmines in Cambodia and in Vietnam and in Asia. And that's the earth. And there is a sexual element to the second house too, because it does rule the body. Madonna also has this placement, and look at her wealth. And then I also want to say Donald Trump has this placement too, and look at his obsession around money. He has a huge, I think, direct psychological impact on who am I is also defined by how much I have. So just look at those three examples. I'm not saying you're like any of those, but you can kind of see when Jupiter is in the second house. With Princess Diana, I don't think she necessarily thought she was exceptionally beautiful, but I do think the world thought that of her. And look at Madonna. She kind of has a little bit of an obsession around her body, keeping her body at almost 70 or however old she is, young, staying forever young. So Jupiter in the third, they have an insatiable appetite to communicate, to learn, to explore life like a jigsaw puzzle, like a mosaic, to expand their minds, their intelligence, and they usually use their voice in some sort of masterful way. Jupiter in the third can have a voice that is very convincing, very inspiring, very philosophical. These people can be also phenomenally inspiring teachers. So I want you to think of somebody who has this, and this is Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey, he has made his entire career, his entire identity is through using his voice and mastering his voice and all the different characters and how philosophical he actually is. Yes, he's a comedic genius, absolutely, maybe the funniest man on the planet. Him, Robin Williams, Jack Black, Chris Rock, it goes on and on. He is so philosophical. I mean, he is also really out there. So just that expansive mind. I also want to tell you, these people can be quite persuasive, and they can bring that regality and that power and that inspiration through the microphone, through the voice. Adolf Hitler also had this. Yeah, and look at how that went. I want you to remember something. A house placement does not mean good or bad. It's what you do with the energy. So what are you doing with your energy? I also want to say these people are usually quite smart, quite intelligent. This expands your mind, expands your intelligence, expands your ability to retain information. And there also might be a lot of early childhood movement. And there is something about about siblings here. So siblings, you can oftentimes be really close to your sibling, best friends, or have a sibling that admires you or you admire them. It depends how Jupiter is aspected. If it's aspected to a malefic planet, this might be a hard placement. But I'll tell you, there's usually, this is on the intelligence axis, teacher-student axis. So becoming both a lifelong learner and also a teacher is part of this placement. Pamela Anderson has this, and I think it's very interesting how she is an activist. While a lot of people think she's just a dumb blonde, she's actually really quite bright in a lot of ways. There is a part of her that is just constantly learning, and she's also a teacher. She's a great promoter of animal cruelty, and I think she's a vegan. So she lives out this truth, this value system, this belief system, right? And then she's an advocate. She goes out into the world and speaks about it too. Fascinating. Okay, let's keep going. Jupiter in the 4th is very interesting. Quite a regal home, or bringing royalty to the home, or being grown up, or being introduced into a royal family. Princess Catherine has this placement. And here she is, part of the royal family now. It can also be like living in foreign land, traveling a lot. But I want you to think about this. There is usually a faith or a spirituality that is enmeshed into your home life. You might live in some sort of spirituality or spiritual commune, or you want to live on spiritual sacred land, or build a home that has some sort of divine aspect to it. You could also be a perpetual traveler. You might live in a foreign land. You might love to live out of your backpack. But I'll tell you that this can also be a very strong patriarchy inside your family. That this placement can lend itself to sort of feeling like your father or your father's lineage is godlike, or very powerful, or regal, or important, or influential. There is oftentimes, if it's well aspected, and I hope you guys kind of know how to read your aspects, and if not, I have a whole series on aspects, yes I do, that you can go watch, and you could start learning your aspects. But if this is in positive aspect, there are usually blessings around your home, and creating an optimistic, inspiring home is a big piece of your life, or having come from one that is such. I also want to give you 2 more examples. So Billie Eilish has this, and look at how she brought her parents to, I think, the VMAs, and she sings with her brother. And I think her music is so deep and so profound and so spiritual, and she adores her parents, and her parents just look so regular, right? But there's optimism there. And she also says, like, I couldn't do what I do without my family and my brother. She adores her brother. And I know siblings are in the 3rd, but there's something about an inspiring life at home, or an inspiring home life, or coming from roots or a heritage that sort of loaned you faith, or taught you about divinity. And also Brad Pitt has this placement, and I too think that he came from a fairly happy childhood home. I think he really loves his mom, his parents. I don't know about his early life or his family life. If you do, please leave a comment, and I want you to tell me what placement you have, and if you feel like you can relate to this Jupiter placement in your chart. I know I can. And I figured out my birth time, because it's not marked on my birth certificate. I figured out my birth time because based on the time that I was born, it was putting Jupiter in either the 12th house or the 1st house. And so I know that I have Jupiter in the 12th house, absolutely 100%. And so I could narrow down my birth time just based on my Jupiter placement. So if you don't know your birth time, if Jupiter is going to switch houses, listen to both houses and see which one you really relate to. And just remember, if you're not coming to Barcelona, which I hope you are, but if you're not coming, I'm going to do an entire day in great detail about Jupiter, and we're going to go into it so much more. So you'll be able to purchase that sometime in the future, like over probably by December or January, you'll be able to purchase my Jupiter workshop. Jupiter in the 5th is kind of extraordinarily creative and self-expressive. This is a big sandbox to play in. And these people are quite jovial, fun, funny, playful. They usually love children. And I'll tell you something very profound with this placement. They're not just great at romance and lovers and attracting, flirting with life and being flirted with and attracting great admiration. They usually have some sort of divine calling in an entertainment world, or through entertainment or creative expression of some sort. And they come rolling in with just creative thunderbolts, if you will. There is massive, massive creative genius with this placement, or the potential. I want you to think of Robin Williams. I swear to God, I think so much of his talent was divinely channeled because he didn't even have time to think or process his talent. It just, right? It just like thunder, it just rolled through him. And he was a comedic genius. I also want to tell you there's another larger than life quality with this Jupiterian placement. Bruce Lee had this, and he was just thunderous. I mean, he was just so beyond talented. People with this placement, you will notice they will make a giant creative statement, whether you like them or you don't. Elon Musk has this, and here he is building rocket ships and sending people to space, or at least trying not to blow up Texas while he does it. But and building electric cars and Teslas, and now the weird shaped car, I forget what it's called. I see one driving around our neighborhood that looks like literally a spaceship. So it's like bringing this creative expression. And also, I'll tell you, it's through their creativity that they develop a deeper faith and have a divine relationship. And when you think about Elon Musk, I forget how many children he has. He has between 8 and 12. I can't remember, but it's a whole lot. So there can be excessive children here, and there can be a childlike playfulness. These people love the we of life. They love laughter and the good times. They can be kind of gluttonous because they want life to be a feast and a joy. And look at Robin's very sad story. I don't know if you guys saw, but I did do a video. I think it might be in my live section on Robin Williams' whole chart. You can search for that on my site. Still to this day, it breaks my heart that he's not with us. His children loved him. He adored his children, and he was very, very childlike. But one thing I want to tell you is, like, Prince Andrew also has this placement, and there can be quite the player. You can have this insatiable appetite for sex, for romance, for dating, for all the good things, and you can overindulge. You can overindulge in the life of Bacchus, in the orgies of life, if you will, metaphorically speaking, and maybe not. But there can be a gluttony, one too many margaritas, right? One too many fun nights. What I was going to tell you about Robin Williams is when he was no longer able to be playful at life or stand in his craft, he chose to not live. And that's how deep this placement can be. There can be this profundity where if I cannot creatively express myself, there is no purpose to live. There is no divine reason to live. So creativity is connected to God. Okay, let's talk about the glorious aspect of Jupiter in the 6th. Wow, does anybody know a person who has Jupiter in the 6th? This can go numerous ways, but let me tell you what I think about this placement. Yes, these people can be workaholics, but there is a divine connection to health and wellness. They also have a deep faith or a deep desire for self-mastery, finding their best self through the pride that they take in their work. So they can't just do any old job and be satisfied. Their job has to be in alignment with their truth. I'm not joking. So their truth and what they believe in is in direct correlation with what they work on a daily basis. For example, if you believe women should be paid the same as men, let's just say that's your belief system. Your job in some way, shape, or form will take on that belief system, and you will propel that belief system into your work. They sort of walk their talk, if you will. They live out through their work, through being in service, through being highly effective, highly efficient, and highly intelligent. This creates magnetic intelligence. Like, wow, these people, do they really know every single thing? Are they pretending? Because I believe them. They are massively intelligent. They can learn so fast, so quick. They can skip grades. They can skim the cliff notes and get a PhD on the subject. I swear, this is a highly intelligent placement. So is the 3rd, so is the 9th, so is the 11th. I also want to tell you this. They are fanatical around either abstinence or health and wellness, abstinence of the gluttony that you will experience with Jupiter in the 5th, or they are just so fixated on being healthy, taking their vitamins, taking their deep cleansing breaths that put them into a Zen state, doing their walk jog. Are you doing your walk jog? And the wellness of their body. There's a magic to this placement, and I love this placement. Tell me if you have this placement. If you do, I am obsessed with you. These are the people that could get diagnosed with an illness and cure themselves drinking miso soup and green tea. Yeah, I'm not joking. I wonder if Dr. Andrew Weil has this placement. I'm going to have to go look. He taught you how to cure cancer through the food that you eat down at the University of Arizona. He is an amazing, amazing doctor using natural medicine. And he opened up that restaurant called True Foods, I think. One of my very favorite restaurants. I eat there all the time in Arizona. He makes like healthy pancakes, like the healthy waffle that's made with protein powder, right? That's this obsession, an obsession with whatever your wellness plan looks like. Maybe it's riding your bike. Maybe it's walking. Maybe it's doing your wall Pilates. Have you guys seen all that? Yeah. Lose 20 pounds in a month doing wall Pilates. Can I do that for Barcelona? Because I do want to go to the beach. Sort of an obsession with finding their higher self, working through their truth, living out their truth on a daily basis, and building a routine for their health and wellness, ultimately to master themselves. They usually place great value on other people who are also doing this, and they make a great mentor, teacher, or just a source of inspiration around their self-mastery campaign, or their health and wellness campaign, or their overcoming addiction campaign, or their overcoming, a disease campaign. Yeah, they are sort of a crusader for this wellness, spiritual wellness, and health and body wellness, and mental wellness. And I want to give you guys some examples, and it doesn't always go well. So you have to see what you have this in aspect to. And if you have Jupiter in the 6th house in a hard aspect, you might have desires to break your addictions, but can't. So Ben Affleck and Amy Winehouse have this. Meryl Streep has this. I think she is a great example of a very healthy person. I will also tell you, this is usually a very humble placement. The king in the house of humility. These people don't usually know how phenomenal they truly are. They underestimate themselves. So Jupiter is royalty. Did you guys watch my video on Jupiter? Please tell me you watched my whole video on what is Jupiter in the chart. I talked about it for an hour. And then don't forget to also watch what sign, the video, part 1 or part 2, what sign your Jupiter is in, and then mix it with the house. You have to blend. We're doing watercolor paintings. We're not doing sun sign astrology, people. No. You know me by now. You've seen it too many times on my videos. We're not doing sun sign astrology. I want to tell you also that there is such a desire for perfectionism. They either achieve it or they get paralyzed by not being perfect. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Did you hear that? That's how they sabotage themselves. So if you have this Jupiter placement, be careful with yourself. Vincent van Gogh had this, and he never felt good enough, and he never even knew he was good. He had no clue. He's looking down at heaven from heaven above right now, and he's going to all his immersion, his Van Gogh immersion exhibitions, and he's like, holy hell, I'm in Missouri too, and I'm in New Orleans, and I'm in Venezuela, and my art, my immersion, my immersion museum is in Maricopa County, Phoenix, Arizona, and it's in France and Germany and Switzerland and Norway, and it's in China. What? I did all that? I had no idea. I didn't know my art was perfect because it had so many imperfections. Yeah, that's what we love about it. If you have this placement, I want you to study Vincent van Gogh and the tragedy of his life, not knowing who he truly was and who he was to become. Do not get paralyzed by not being perfect. When I say these people are intelligent, I really mean it. So whether you are in alignment with what these people believe or not, you cannot deny that Oprah Winfrey is an intelligent, highly intelligent person. I think just because of all the thousands of people that she has interviewed, she has mastered the art of communication. And Hillary Rodham Clinton also has this placement, and you can see the perfectionist in her, and her intelligence is undeniable. And so this is a really special placement for me. I think this is a very profound placement for Jupiter in Virgo's natural house. Do you see how we're doing this? Okay, so for the newbies, there's the natural zodiacal wheel, and it goes in the order of the zodiac: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, right? When you have your Jupiter in the 6th house, it's taking on those Virgo qualities, even though in your chart it's in Scorpio, or in your chart it's in Capricorn, or in your chart it's in Sagittarius. The natural zodiacal wheel makes the 6th house operate like a Virgo, makes the 5th house operate a little bit like a Leo, makes the 4th house operate a little bit like a Cancer. And so that's what we're doing. We're blending that natural zodiacal wheel with your sign, whatever zodiac sign your Jupiter is in. We're blending those two energies, and we are coming up with the magic formula and the alchemy that makes you uniquely you. You so special. This Jupiter is the happiness factor inside your chart. Are you a happy person? Will you answer that question for me? Are you a happy person? And if so, what is your Jupiter placement by sign and by house? And we won't talk aspects yet. Not yet. Okay, Jupiter in the 7th, I think, has a double-edged sword. Okay, first of all, it can be absolutely glorious. These people are usually exceptionally charming. They have a boatload of beauty and charm, diplomacy. I think that they even have a little bit of a cool aloofness where they can detach, but this can also create multiple marriages. This can also create sort of an over-idealization of partnership. Either they want one so badly or they're so codependent on a relationship, or they oftentimes can even see their partner as their God or deity. They can be quite the follower. They can put their partner on a pedestal. But I mean, this one is really a mixed bag, so I don't know how it's going to show up. So if you're a super healthy person, I think this can be absolutely an extraordinary placement because there is going to be a brilliant, probably communicator, a person who can negotiate, a person who can see both sides of the equation, a person who has a high EQ and IQ. Gandhi had this, okay? I also want to say Marilyn Monroe had this, and look at her trouble with partnerships, and look at how she was kind of the deity and she was kind of the god, but she lost herself inside codependency and relationships and then got bored because the men became too small to hold on to her interest. And the grass was always greener. So there was a great ambivalence. The other thing that can happen with this placement is just because Libra has this fickleness to them is that you want to be free, Sagittarius. That's Jupiter's. Jupiter is the ruler of both Pisces and Sagittarius. And Pisces and Sagittarius do not like to be pinned down. They need a lot of freedom. So there's this desire to be tethered to somebody and they get their values. They find their highest self. They find their betterment comes oftentimes through partnerships. Like, I want to be a better person because you're in my life, but I also want to be free. And so this can feel sometimes very psychotic. Like, I don't know what I want, but you can ooze charm and you can be gorgeous. Ryan Gosling has this. Oh, I also want to say Jim Morrison has this. There is oftentimes a talent where you're a sex symbol, where you just are just so wanted, so desired, right? You could have anybody you want. But I will tell you, Charles Manson also had this. So, I mean, he ran a cult. People wanted to be a part of him. People were buying what he was selling, right? This one can go both ways, but there is usually an exorbitant amount of options for these people. They can kind of have what they want. So if you have this placement, I want to kind of know how it plays out. And also if it's in negative aspect, you have to be very careful of creating codependency. Like Charles Manson, people were codependent on him, right? They idolized him. They set him up as he became the god and they became his disciples, literally. Look at Marilyn Monroe. You could say she has disciples, look at all of them. Jim Morrison, even Ryan Gosling. I mean, everybody's fangirling over him. Jimi Hendrix had this placement. I mean, this Alicia Keys, I'm just looking at my list. Courtney Love, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. There's somebody who could broker deals, right? Who had magnetic charm. She was the more beautiful one of the two sisters. And she married the freaking most handsome president of the United States of America, maybe the most popular president to ever exist. And this is a perfect example of this placement. This is Nelson Mandela's placement as well. So there's that's like Gandhi, trying to negotiate peace, trying to broker peace, love, harmony, whatever your opinion is on that. I think that's what his intention was. So this is a fascinating placement. You'll have to let me know what sign you have your Jupiter in the 7th if you do. Jupiter in the 8th is very profound. These people like to push the doors. They like to push the boundaries, I should say, on the taboo, on saying or exploring the thing everybody's thinking, but nobody says, right? And sort of being a button pusher, if you will, or a boundary pusher to create transformation of new ideas, to break boundaries to create transformation. There is a depth, there is a deep brooding inner self that might be revealed or might not. I want you to think of Taylor Swift, and there is a hidden meaning in every single thing she does. I mean, even her shoes are symbolic. So these people live life sort of exploring the hidden messages and hidden meanings of their life. There's a private power here too that is internal that you may see, you may experience. Michael Jackson had this. I want to also tell you that these people oftentimes have built their lives out of hard things, hard times, or even tragedies. Look at Michael Jackson's life right there. You could even almost say that Michael's entire life was tragic. You could almost say that. John F. Kennedy, we just talked about Jackie O. John F. Kennedy had this and he was assassinated. He also had so many love affairs. It's kind of well known now that he was quite a philanderer and quite a player because this is the house of sex. And so there's oftentimes a huge sexual appetite, and it can also be a taboo around sex. Look at Michael Jackson and the controversy, whether you believe it or not, that he liked young boys. But there's oftentimes a hidden sexual affair or preoccupation or desire, or there can also be a sexual inhibition. But I want to say that these people oftentimes are wealthy, and they usually are wealthy through other people's money. Look at John F. Kennedy. He inherited his father's wealth and his family's lineage of wealth. Taylor created her own wealth. She didn't come from wealthy parents. Michael Jackson created his own wealth, but people invested in her. So wealth is usually built through the investment of other people believing in you, or you finding a partner or a spouse or a business partner that believes in you and wants to invest in you. Also, I want to tell you, Joe Biden, again, we're not talking politics, just people, not politics, has this placement. And the tragic part of his life is just heartbreaking, where he lost his children and his wife in a car accident. And he was a single father until he met Jill Biden. And then he lost his beloved son to cancer from tar pits in the war. And he's practically lost his other son through his addictions. And so it's quite a tragic life. So these people usually find their spirituality and deepen their faith through crisis, through trauma, through death, through divorce. And they usually dance with death in some way or the loss of something. And in Taylor Swift, you might argue that there is no loss. I think prior to Travis, she has had so much loss around love. And I think her job, her career, her talent, her place in society, I think she is probably the most popular woman on the planet today, has left her feeling alienated, alone, torn apart, messed up, broken, sad, betrayed. I think she's had huge betrayals in her life that she's had to come to terms with. And she's built her songs out of her breakups, right? Out of her losses, out of her divorces. You could consider those breakups modern day divorce. Very painful. So there's usually a pain aspect here that creates a deep faith, a talent, a spirituality, a divine connection, a belief in God, a truth that they live by, they live and die by. And there is usually deep personal transformation in these people's lives where they completely transform. Do you have this placement? How did it play out with you? Did you recover from tragedy? That's my question. And by the way, you guys, I cannot recommend enough that if you have this placement, you should buy my Scorpio masterclass. It's not very much. I talk a lot about the 8th house. I talk a lot about Scorpio because this has a huge scorpionic emphasis, and you need to understand that Scorpio is exaggerated in your chart. Even if you have Jupiter in Leo in the 8th, that 8th house acts like Scorpio. So the Scorpio masterclass is definitely sort of advanced thinking for you. And I have that at shopsoulnavigation.com. And for everybody, I think you should really think about getting the Soul's Design Report that I sell, or even the Child's Report. That is so good. Even if you're a 60-year-old adult, that Child's Report is so deep. It's one of my favorites. I absolutely love it. So if you already have the starter package, consider getting the Soul's Design or the Child's Report so you can go a little bit deeper into the houses, into the rulers, into the context of how to blend this watercolor painting together, because we're not doing sun sign astrology. Okay, wow, we got to talk about Jupiter in the 9th because it's happy here and it's at home here. And I'm really curious if you have this placement, what sign you have this in and how does it show up for you. So this is quite an optimistic placement. There is a little bit of a downside, as there is with any one of these placements. Like any placement has a good and a bad. So one is not better than the other. This is the placement of the great visionary. This is somebody who has such a desire to understand the meaning of life, the truth about their life, the truth about their life within the world, and to live out that philosophical truth, to become a visionary for others. And I want to tell you a couple people that have this placement just so you can put it in your head. Mother Teresa has this placement. Robert Redford, who I believe Robert Redford either invented or created or was a producer of the Sundance Film Festival, promoting and supporting independent filmmakers. And he is quite a philosophical man. He's a very beautiful, beautiful visionary. And he went well beyond just acting and being, he was the Brad Pitt before it was Brad Pitt. Now he's a producer, and he's really shaped the film industry. Mother Teresa, need I say more, right? She had a vision for humanity. I also want to say that people with this placement really believe in expanding their consciousness. And they usually have a cosmic belief system, a religious belief system, a spiritual belief system, a divine belief system, a divine connection. And their minds are so big. So they usually go well beyond their one talent. I want you to think about how wildly enormous their minds are and their vision. So whatever their train track is, they go way beyond into the ethers. So Keanu Reeves has this. And if you've ever listened to that beautiful soul talk, he's unafraid to be himself. And he knows who he is, and he is humbly unapologetic about it. And he is also a massive visionary. Johnny Depp also has this. And I don't know if you've ever listened to Johnny Depp pontificate about life, but he is an extraordinary visionary. Albert Einstein has this, right? Like, you can see this is a placement of high intelligence too. It's a different kind. It's not necessarily like, I know Einstein was a mathematician, but it's not necessarily 1 + 1 is 2. It's the understanding the hypothesis of life, crusading for the truth of life, understanding who is God, why do I exist? And I think that Robert Redford, believing in the independent filmmaker, didn't want the truths just to be big box truths, wanted the independent filmmaker to be able to share their unique visions too. So all of these people were visionaries in some ways. Look at Johnny Depp. I don't know if you guys have seen his artwork. He is the most brilliant painter. Have you guys seen his artwork, his portraits? My God, that man is talented. And he is such a poet when he speaks. I also want to say these people oftentimes feel like foreigners in their own world. They often love to travel. They often marry people who are different than them. David Bowie, for example. And they can be quite charming. And they can ooze charisma, and they are oftentimes found in the entertainment or the teaching world. One thing I do want to say is when this goes wrong, it can be where this person feels like they know everything they need to know, and they're better teachers than listeners or students. They're not the greatest apprentices. They just want to try their hand at something and become masterful at it. And so there can be a little bit of a reluctance to learn more if they're arrogant, because this can be an arrogant placement. They can also be quite extraordinary. Is this your placement? Tell me about it. Okay, let's talk about Jupiter in the 10th. Jupiter in the 10th is really extraordinary. I mean, I have to tell you that these people usually are called into a greatness, and they usually are on a quest for something higher, for a relationship to the divine. They usually credit their success to divine energy or to God or a higher authority. And they oftentimes live with a gratitude for being in the position of fame, fortune, leadership, success, and there's usually an abundance of that. The author of Moby Dick, who was on the hunt for truth, for God, and for wholeness through his adventures of the sea and travels. Victor Hugo has this placement. I think I mentioned Prince William, Lady Gaga, Nicole Kidman. I mean, these people are absolutely masterful at their craft, and they are leaders in their industry. Emma Watson has this placement. Whether you like her or not, she is a leader inside her own fashion icon, influencer industry. Kim Kardashian and Steve Jobs has this placement. Look at these people. These people will shape our culture and our world if we are born at the same time as them, or we will be living in a world that they helped shape or they helped create, whether you like it or not. I also want to say that their occupations, their legacy, their career can literally reach the masses. It can be quite international, like the 9th house can also be an international, global, cosmic influence. So can this placement. And this placement can have a great deal of fame attached to it. If Jupiter is well aspected, they can be well liked, but they can also be a megalomaniac, they can be quite arrogant, and they can be even hated. They can be famous for the heinous. So do you have this placement? This placement creates an incredibly highly capable human being, being able to shoulder a great deal of responsibility. Like Nicole Kidman, I don't think she sleeps, right? She's in a major blockbuster movie every other week, it seems. Steve Jobs, Kim Kardashian, these are busy people, very, very busy on their pursuit of their truth, on their spiritual pursuit for truth. And I don't know if Kim Kardashian has a deep spirituality, but I do think she is on a quest for the truth of her power and her influence in the world. Look at Lady Gaga. She is absolutely exceptional at her craft. And I think she hopes to change the world with her craft. I don't think she just wants to be famous. Anyways, there's great meaning and value and purpose with this placement. Let's talk about Jupiter now in the 11th house. Jupiter in the 11th house is a little bit hard for me to explain, but that's because it is so profound here. These people want to be a part of a cause that is much greater than just themselves. They have a very pay it forward feeling about life. There is a part of them that will usually belong to groups or organizations that propel their truth forward in some way, shape, or form. It can be an artist community, a political community, a religious community, but oftentimes they have a very busy life. They're activists, they're humanitarians, they usually care about the truths, the life values of the collective, whatever their collective is. They can be part of the UFO group or organization or on the board of missing persons, right? Taking a stance in a way that helps improve the human condition. One of my very favorite people with this placement was Frida Kahlo. And wow, how she became a part of the artistic community and being a woman trying to break through in that community, having been injured, brutally injured, overcoming her own obstacles. Art became divine for her. It became her religion, to be honest with you. Tom Cruise, whether you like him or you don't, his Scientology, I think, is his Jupiter in the 11th. I also think that I don't think he's a very selfish person. I think he really does live as a performer, if you will, as an actor. He's a performer actor, if you will, for a mission or a statement or an expression that's much larger than just himself. Did I ever tell you guys that while I lived in New York City for a small period of time, I also lived in New Jersey and I commuted in every day, and Tom Cruise rode the same train I did back in the day. He's a little bit older than me, and he was sitting two people behind me. And he also rode the same subway that I rode too, because I had to take a certain subway to catch the PATH train to go to New Jersey. And I think he's from New Jersey, to tell you the truth. Anyways, I rode the train and the subway with Tom Cruise. He was unrecognizable. And by the way, he is very short. He's kind of tiny, to tell you the truth. He's kind of a short, tiny person compared to me. I know, isn't that shocking? I want to tell you, don't let your personal opinions about a person eclipse being able to read their astrology. Okay, so try to stay neutral in your opinion about a person to be able to still learn from their astrology. So, for example, Marine Le Pen, who's part of the far right movement in France, she has this. Whether you agree with her or, like me, disagree with her, that doesn't matter. I just want to show you the astrology. Here she is, a political activist wanting to reform France, or wanting to, I think her father was a famous politician, wanting to reinstate sort of what her father once believed. I don't know if I have that accurate. If I have any French people listening, tell me. These people are usually reformers, revolutionaries. They are innovative. They are a part of a larger cause, not just themselves. They're a part of a movement. I really love this Jupiter placement because I think these people have a desire, like Zendaya and Adele. I think they have a desire for an egalitarian, not necessarily the Marie Le Pen, but I don't speak French, so I don't really know her positions. They have a desire to build an equal system. So, for example, I just watched a bunch of shorts and videos on Adele. She literally talks to this little 4-year-old in the audience about, hey, how are you doing? And she gets down on her hands and knees in her ball gown to have this little conversation with this 4-year-old who's in the front row of her concert. And she doesn't let hecklers, she doesn't let bullies be mean at her concerts. I think Adele is a great example of somebody who sings for a much greater cause than her own ego. And I think that there is also a humility sometimes with this placement where we are all equal, we are all one. Prince had this placement, and while he was quite shy for other reasons, I do think that there was sort of a sacrificial element to his whole life in some ways. He wanted to prove a point that the record industry was not above him and could not own him. A lot of these people cannot be bought. They cannot be paid. Now we have to look at the placements, and if the aspects are hard or if there's malefics in play with this, yes, this can bring a lot of self-righteous where my way is the right way, where I'm intolerant of intolerance. Therefore, you experience that paradox with me. And so there can be a little bit of an inflexible arrogance here where I believe my veganism or I believe the way I'm recycling and I believe that, makes me holier than thou. So it's like in their great cause, there is virtue, but then they hold that over your head if they're not healthy, because this really is a placement where these people usually have a deep faith in acceptance for all. This is the person who sees the homeless person, the unhoused person. This is the Jewish man who recognizes that not all Palestinians are Hamas or evil. This is the person that can see past our differences and really unify. I also want to tell you that these people usually can have sort of famous lives because the 11th house, this is how I explain the 11th house. And I hope you guys will watch my video called The 11th House. By the way, wherever your Jupiter placement is, you should go watch that house video on my channel. So Connie Jo and I did a whole series on the houses, and we've done 12 through 4. We only have 3, 2, and 1 left. So wherever your Jupiter placement is, you should go watch that series of the house and what that house means, because wherever your Jupiter is where you're exaggerated. And one of the things that's very interesting about the 11th house is I say the 11th house is the internet. It is true. So the 3rd house is your website. Okay, so you go to my website, soulnavigation.com, and you're interfacing with my 3rd house. You really are. That's what my 3rd house looks like. My YouTube channel, where I made my gold, woohoo, do you see my video? Do you see my plaque? Oh my gosh, do you see it? Do you see it? Oh my gosh, look at this. Yay! Yay! It's so exciting. This is the 11th house. Internet. This is the YouTube channel with over 100,000 subscribers. So what I want to say is that is the 11th house. So there can be an element of fame with this house, such as Prince, such as Adele, such as Elvis Presley, right? So the 11th house, it can be the masses. So the 3rd house is your website, but the 11th house is the people on the internet watching you, if you will. Yeah. So it's the group. It is the organization. It's in my life, it's all of you. And I should say thank you so much for being a super supporter or a superstar super supporter or a subscriber. It means the world to me. And if you haven't joined my channel, I want to give you an opportunity to see all the videos that you would get behind the scenes. There are so many. I just wanted you to see all of the behind the scenes videos that you get when you become a member. 65 different videos. You will learn so much when you become a member. So if you really want to understand your out of bounds planets, Jupiter transits, learning astrology with me, compatibility in a complex chart. If you want to learn my personal tips and techniques reading the chart, progressions, your moons, your Mercury, Pluto's hidden meaning in the chart, interceptions, how to see your past life. That was one of my favorite ones. Come become a member. It's only $2.99, and it actually helps keep this channel alive. And it just goes on and on and on. You can also join at the higher level, get your gorgeous natal chart complimentary when you sign up. And within 3 months, you will get your entire year's personalized forecast for the whole entire year. You will get all my behind the scenes content, and you will get invited to my masterclasses and my parties. And I use my members' charts in my lives. Thank you to everybody who is a super supporter. And I would like to invite you to come and be a super supporter. It's your dollars that help me do this work. And I hope you will join because I am doing more videos for you. I'm going to try to do monthly transit videos for all of you members, and you will get that every single month. That is my new goal. Let's hope I can live up to it. So thank you so much. And if you're not a member, I hope so much you will join for just $2.99 and get all my behind the scenes videos. So that's an opportunity to say thank you to all of you. The 11th house wants to pursue out there in the world through groups, through organizations, through making massive change, massive change, like what Elvis Presley did in the music industry. He changed rock and roll forever. They want to be remembered in some way that their work created a revolution. Okay, let's talk about the 12th. Jupiter in the 12th house is such an enormous placement. This placement is also very hard for me to put into words because this place has a magical bent to it. People who have Jupiter in the 12th house are seeking the truth about life, the meaning of life, but they usually start out their pilgrimage looking for the truth of life, the divine truth of life. Like, where do we come from? What is the cosmic order of life? What is a guardian angel? Who are my spirit guides? What is the soul's contract? What is a soul? What is a body? Where does the soul live in between lifetimes? Dr. Michael Newton's work, right? And they start out, questing for it out there and, out there somewhere, only to realize that the answers are all within here. The answers are also never going to be found in the pragmatic world. There is something very spiritually deep about these people. This is Jupiter's other house. So the crusade here oftentimes lends optimism in very dark times. Often you will find some of the most optimistic people with this placement. Jupiter likes this placement. This is a favorite house for Jupiter, just like the 9th house, because this is Pisces house by the natural zodiacal wheel. So there is a Pisces element to whatever sign you have Jupiter in. You got to mix it in with Pisces. And there can be even a prophetic nature here. This is the house of the spiritual counselor, the psychic guru, the psychic counselor, the clairvoyant. This person can also be a guardian angel to others or have a deep relationship to their guardian angels, to the spiritual world. It's usually more of a spiritual bent rather than a religious bent, although religion can be here. This is a person who can be an absolutely great earth angel to other people, literally saving lives in prisons, hospitals, or through their healing capacity. I want to give you the laundry list of people that have this placement because it's really extraordinary and very special. So the first is Barack Obama has this placement. Beyonce has this placement. Martin Luther King has this placement. J-Lo, Justin Bieber, George Clooney, Jennifer Aniston, Sharon Tate, David Beckham, Nikola Tesla. There is, and Sandra Bullock. Wow, her story, her personal story has touched me so deeply. Margot Robbie, Penelope Cruz, and one of my favorite human beings on the planet because I think he is truly a vessel of goodness. And I just watched him again in the movie with my dad while my dad was recovering. I just watched him in Castaway, Mr. Tom Hanks. It just goes on and on. I mean, there are just so many people here. One of the things that I do want to say is oftentimes these people can have a great deal of spiritual psychic sensitivity, like they can have a knowing, but they can also live in a magical world. These people usually come to realize that the world is not about the tangible, concrete results or the money that they made or even the job, but it comes down to spiritual and divine love. Oftentimes you will see that these people have hard challenges in their life, and for some reason, their faith, their optimism, their inspiration pulls them out of darkness. This is the house that you can feel very alienated. And so your spiritual beliefs might be foreign to others. They might be a little bit unconventional, whacked out there, at least called that. This is also the land of fairies and unicorn and stardust. And so these people can oftentimes be quite compelling on esoteric subjects. There is usually a great deal, like Martin Luther King, even Barack Obama, as far as these people, George Clooney, these people have usually an uncanny ability to be inspirational thinkers, Nikola Tesla, and inspirational communicators. It's like other people can borrow their optimism. Other people can sort of want their fairy dust, if you will, their magic. They see the magic in life, or they have an ability to touch that magic, interface with the magic minutes of life. Tell me if you have this placement. Tell me if you feel like you've been touched by magic in some way, the uncanny, the esoteric. I hope you guys love this series. Jupiter is so damn exciting to talk about. And if you haven't watched my first Jupiter video in this series, what does Jupiter mean in the natal chart? Please, please watch that. It is so important. And this is your optimism. So tell me, are you an optimistic, inspiring, inspired, happy person? If you are, that's your Jupiter working. Yes, it is. I cannot wait to meet you, hopefully in person, and I hope our paths cross. And wherever you are at in the world, I'm grateful that you're learning astrology with me right here in Seattle. From my home to yours, I wish you the very, very best.